And now it's worthwhile reviewing what we've learned about the kind of study that philosophy is, the subject matter of philosophy. And just in general, you could say philosophy is really serious thinking. You might say analytical. Some people say critical. I don't like to use critical because it's associated with critical thinking, and many other disciplines say they teach people to be critical. I'm talking about analytical or logical, I sometimes call it, thinking about certain fundamental questions. And the questions are what really make the essence of philosophy today. And those questions being, you know, questions of value, right? There's a branch of philosophy called ethics, moral philosophy, studies good and evil, right or wrong. We've been through the trolley example, so we know what that's all about. Then political philosophy is worried about ethics for the government, questions about justice. What's the right form of government? Uh, what should the what does the what do people owe society? What does society owe them? And then there are other kinds of questions outside of the realm of ethics. There's another entire branch called aesthetics, which studies questions about beauty. Are there objective standards of beauty, etc.? Okay. Now the second area or another area that philosophical questions fall into deal with reality. And the branch of philosophy that studies reality is metaphysics. And we'll talk about a couple of questions that fall in there in a second. And then there's the branch of philosophy or the questions in philosophy that deal with knowledge. And if you look at it, knowledge and reality are kind of two sides of the same coin. Reality tells you is worried about what's really there. Questions about knowledge are questions about how we would know what is real. How would we would know things about reality? Can we know things about reality? The branch of philosophy that studies knowledge is called epistemology. You might wonder how the heck are you going to ever remember epistemology? You could put your uh, throw the ology off its theory of usually, but episteme happens to be a Greek word. There are several words in Greek, but one Greek word for knowledge. And one way you might remember this is occasionally my wife is someplace. I don't do this. She only does this, and meeting people who are either uh, sometimes they're physicians or they're the spouses of physicians, wives or husbands of physicians, and they'll say, "Oh my, I'm an orthopedist or I'm a neurologist." Or my husband's a neurologist, my wife's a neurologist, whatever, or my wife's a neurologist, something like that. And she'll say, "Well, my husband's an epistemologist." And many of them, especially those who are physicians, even those physicians just have never heard of it, and they're just assuming that I'm a physician who takes care of elderly gentlemen who have difficulties, taking care of their business. Um, it's so that's where they think I'm a urologist, but my wife tells them I am an epistemologist. So epistemologist, I hope you'll remember that. Maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. Okay, and the other area that philosophy really deals with, and this is the tool of philosophy, is logic. How to properly reason. And that sometimes people sometimes throw that in the branch of, uh, of epistemology. And this kind of reinforces what you read in what I suggested that chapter in the comic book introduction to philosophy, which I think is a really good book. Okay. Now, if we're thinking of questions ethics, political philosophy, questions of value there, big questions, what's the right thing to do? What's the morally correct role of government? What it should be doing? In metaphysics, some of the questions that you encounter, you haven't seen, question of what is truth? That is, what makes something true? Is it true just because everybody believes it? The scientific community believes it, etc. Questions about that. Then and here's one that strikes everybody. At some point, we all realize that our lives are going to come to an end. And then the question is, what happens, to me after I die? Some people believe that my consciousness goes on. There are religious views that there's this non-physical object, this soul uh, that makes, that is me, that continues after I die. Some people believe in reincarnation, but the question is, what really am I? Am I just this physical object? Is all my thinking just what's going on in my brain? Another question: does a supreme God exist? That is a supreme being. If you think about what is in the monotheistic religions, at least the Western monotheistic religions, what is God supposed to be? Supposed to be an all powerful, all knowing, perfectly good being. So the question, the metaphysical question is there such a being? Now, another question that I think is really kind of an interesting question in philosophy, and this one I want to dwell on, and a question of metaphysics. Now, if you were sitting in my classroom, I'd ask you, do you want to get credit for coming to class today? And if everybody says, of course I do. But then I ask them, well, wait a second, in order to get here today, you had to wake up in the morning. I'd say, yeah. And think about it. How did you wake up this morning? Did you all of a sudden you were thinking about and say, it's time to wake up? Or sometimes, well, I set an alarm and then I decided to get up. Now, I'm not talking about deciding to get up. I'm talking about when that alarm goes off. Are you sitting there thinking, is it time? Shall I get up? And all of a sudden you make a decision to get up. I think for most of us, that's not quite the way it works. The alarm goes off and automatically we our eyes open. Maybe we decide to close them, roll over, and go back to bed. We don't want to go to school. We don't want to go to work today, etc. But we didn't really freely choose to get up. Now, think about what scientists tell us. What if they're asking a question? What caused the pen to drop? If let's say I had a pen in my hand, and I let it go. What caused the pen to drop? Did it decide to fall down? It had free will? They'd say no. It's just the forces of nature, and the previous state caused it to fall. The previous state, I was holding it, I let go of it. That caused it to fall. So the pen doesn't have any free will. And if you think about it, well, you decided to get up. Or first of all, you woke up. Whatever got you up, got you up. Then the next thing is, you decided to get out of bed. But how did you make that decision? What made that decision? Were there some processes going on in your brain, in your nervous system, that the physical things before that caused that? And those caused the next thing, and those caused you to get on whatever means of transportation and go wherever it is that you were going to get here? Well, clearly, I should say clearly, scientists at least, a lot of them tell you that these things were all caused. Now the question is, where does that leave any room for your free will? If you're doing something, it has to be your choice. But if what happened before caused something else to happen, you're really not acting. That is a question in metaphysics, and a very interesting question. It has implications, I think, about ethics. We might talk about some of those down the road in the course. Now, questions of epistemology, questions about the theory of knowledge. And it's kind of the flip side, I said, of the questions about metaphysics, reality. The major questions really is, what can I know? I mean, can I know what the weather's like 10 years from now? Can I know what the weather's like 100 years from now? Can I know, that I'm sitting in a chair, talking to you, giving this little talk? Can I know that? Can I really know that stuff? Or maybe I'm just sitting here dreaming. So those are the questions. What can I know? How can I know? Can I really know anything? And what is the extent of our knowledge? Another question is, what's the difference between knowing something and just having an opinion? A lot of people have opinions. That doesn't mean they know it. So there are some of the questions in the major branches of philosophy. And I hope this gives you a better idea of what philosophy is. It's love of wisdom or knowledge, but certain kind of knowledge now is limited to philosophy. And these are some of the major areas in which philosophy deals.